we must have sex to procreate, but would you die without sex? Welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, welcome. I'm Dr. Holly, sex, trauma, and relationship therapist, and today I want to say something that might be a little bit controversial. There's no such thing as sex drive. Yep, I said it. So let's hop right in, break that down, and find out a little bit more about sexual desire and arousal. So we've all heard the term sex drive, right? Another word for sex drive is libido, which is a term that originates from the Latin word for lust or desire. This concept actually originated from Sigmund Freud in 1905 to signify the instinctual, physiological, or psychic energy associated with sexual urges. Freud described libido as a biological drive, thus the term sex drive. But is sex really a biological drive? You see, by definition, biological drives are inborn motivations from the body's need to maintain homeostasis and survive, like hunger, thirst, or sleep. And one could argue that for the sake of carrying on the species, we must have sex to procreate, but would you die without sex? Now, some people might feel that they would die without sex, but in reality, lack of sex is not going to kill you like lack of food or lack of water. Therefore, libido, or sexual desire, is not necessarily a drive. Instead, sexual desire is known as what's called an incentive motivation system, meaning we all require an incentive or motivation to provide for or reinforce desire for sexual activity. For many people, the key reasons for engaging in sexual activity include physical pleasure and a desire for intimate connection. But motivations for engaging in sexual activity can vary widely from person to person. Ultimately, if sexual activity, particularly with a partner, doesn't provide some form of fulfillment or benefit, it can be really challenging to maintain sexual desire. This can be especially true for folks in long-term relationships, where the initial excitement or novelty of being with a person can naturally start to diminish over time. Additionally, certain motivations may be easier to sustain than others. For example, if your main motivation for engaging in sex is to please or satisfy your partner, it can be really hard to sustain interest in sex over a longer period of time. Therefore, identifying and understanding your own unique reasons or motivations for engaging in sexual activity are key to understanding your desire and maintaining it over time. If you're someone who is interested in exploring more of what your sexual motivations are, feel free to take a look at the link in the description with a free resource to better understanding what your sexual motivators are. Okay, so we talked a bit about sex drive and motivations, but what about desire? Sexual desire is defined as the motivated interest in sex or sexual activity triggered by external stimuli or internal stimuli like private thoughts and fantasies. And this is sometimes confused with arousal. Arousal is actually the physiological and psychological responses in preparation for sexual intercourse or when exposed to sexual stimuli. So desire, conscious motivated interest, arousal, physiological and psychological response. The words desire and arousal are often used interchangeably, but they're slightly different. Desire usually refers to emotionally wanting to engage in sex, while arousal refers to the physiological changes in your body that happen when you're sexually excited. This brings me to the human sexual response. For years, researchers believed that arousal and sexual desire were a linear process as described by Masters and Johnson in 1966. In their model, the human sexual response began with the physiological feelings of arousal. Then, in 2000, Rosemary Basson introduced a different model of sexual arousal. Basson's sexual response model introduced a significant shift in our understanding of human sexual desire, particularly for women. This model changed the traditional linear view of sexual response and instead offered a more nuanced circular approach. The model also emphasizes that desire can be responsive rather than just spontaneous. And women may choose to engage in sexual activity for reasons other than initial sexual desire, such as seeking intimacy or expressing love. And though Basson's research emphasized the idea of responsive desire for women, it's important to note that anybody of any gender or any sex can identify with either spontaneous or responsive sexual desire. So what do I mean when I say spontaneous and responsive desire? Spontaneous desire is what we're taught to expect, like in the movies, a sudden out-of-nowhere attraction or desire to engage in sex. But for many people, desire works differently. For those folks, we say that desire is responsive, meaning that they feel sexual desire in response to a stimulus. And this could be something like cuddling or actual sexual stimuli to get you more physiologically and, more importantly, psychologically in the mood to have sex. For responsive folks, it may feel like sexual desire takes longer to develop, and that is perfectly normal and okay. A good metaphor for this is to think that some people heat up like microwaves and some people heat up like ovens. Neither is better or worse, and they both can cook up a really good meal. They're just different. And what's most important is knowing what works best for you. One of the best ways to think about desire is through the dual control model. Proposed by Dr. Eric Jansen and Dr. John Bancroft in 2007, the dual control model suggests that our arousal system has two parts: accelerators and brakes. Accelerators are things that turn us on, such as flirty texts, physical touch, erotic thoughts, or feeling close to our partner. Brakes, on the other hand, are things that shut us down or turn us off. Those could be things like stress, relationship issues, or body image concerns. Understanding your personal accelerators and brakes can be really helpful in better understanding your own experience of sexual desire. If you're interested in exploring those accelerators and brakes, you can take a look at Emily Nagoski's free worksheets, Sexy Context and Turning Off the Turn-Offs, adapted from her book, Come As You Are. I've gone ahead and linked both of those in the description for you below. Now that we know a bit about libido, desire, and arousal, let's talk about the things that shape our desire. Number one is going to be physical health. So things like hormones, medications, and lifestyle choices can all influence our experience of sexual desire. Number two is going to be mental health. Things like stress, anxiety, depression, and other mental health concerns can all have a big impact on our experience of sexual desire. So it's important to pay attention to our mental health just as much as we pay attention to our physical health, because both can have a significant impact on our experience of sex and sexual desire. Number three, relationship dynamics. Emotional intimacy and communication play a huge role in our experience of sexual desire. I often say that sex starts way before you enter the bedroom, and many would say that sex actually begins the moment that you stop having sex, meaning that every interaction that you have with your partner up until the point of having sex can significantly impact your sexual desire and your sexual experience. Thus, if you notice something is off with your experience of sexual desire, I urge you to take a look at, is there anything in my relationship that might be impacting how I'm feeling about sex right now? Number four, cultural and religious messaging. What we were taught about sex growing up can create barriers to sexual desire as adults. For example, if you grew up being told that sex was dirty or sex was only for the purpose of making babies, that can create significant barriers to your experience of sex and sexual desire now, especially if you're engaging in sex in a way that doesn't align with those specific principles. So I encourage you to think about what messages you were taught about sex growing up, either explicitly or implicitly, and how those might be impacting your experience of sexual desire. Okay, so if you've made it this far, you know that sex isn't a drive, but how do we work with our experience of sexual desire? Here are a few tips. Number one, communicate openly with your partner about desires and needs. I can't say enough how important it is to communicate openly about sex with your partner. I often joke that if you are adult enough to be having sex, then you should be adult enough to be communicating about it. But I know that many times this is easier said than done. For many people, sex is a very emotionally loaded topic, so talking about something as intimate and as personal as sex, even with the person that you're doing it with, can be really scary. So please look out for other videos that I have on tips on how to communicate openly with your partner about sex, if that is something that you are struggling with. Next, identify and reduce your breaks. Oftentimes, somebody will present to me saying that they have low sexual desire, and I like to look at A, is their foot not hard enough on the accelerator, or B, is their foot too hard on the brakes? So whether your brakes are stress, lack of self-esteem, or fatigue, take a look at what those brakes might be and how you can better manage them. Number 3, experiment with the accelerators. Explore what turns you on, try new things, and share with your partner what feels good. Number 4, prioritize self-care. Remember that taking care of your physical health and your mental health can significantly boost your desire, so be sure to make time for your overall wellness. Lastly, challenge any cultural myths about desire and intimacy, and instead embrace your own unique sexual journey. Everybody's experience of desire and sexuality is different, and what really matters is that everything is pleasurable and consensual. So long as you have those two, there is no right way to engage in intimacy, and there is no one way to experience sexual desire. So take some time to self-reflect and find out what feels authentic to you. Now, there is one last thing that I wanted to share with you, and that is if you are a woman who is struggling with low sexual desire and want a safe space to explore and reconnect to your desire, I invite you to check out my self-paced course and private group, Women Who Want to Want. And this is a project I have been working on for quite some time, and I am truly excited and passionate about, not just as a therapist, but as a woman who has struggled with sexual desire herself. It's designed to provide you with practical tools, a supportive community, and the ability to move through the content at your own pace so you can rediscover desire on your own terms. If you're interested, click the link in the description to find out more. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video helped to shift your perspectives on desire and arousal, and maybe even challenge some preconceived notions about sex drive. Remember, you're not broken if you don't feel desire all the time, or if your experience of sexual desire doesn't align with people in the movies. Desire is complex, to say the least. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more tips on sexual health and wellness. And as always, feel free to share this video with someone whom you think might benefit. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and remember, you deserve a healthy, happy, and pleasurable life. For many people, reasons for engaging in sex can include physical pleasure and a desire for intimate connection. But motivations can vary. Now, some might feel that without sex, they would drive. Low sexual desire, I say, let's take. Yep, that is definitely lipstick on my shirt.